Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for a bit of an unplanned stream. Didn't quite see this coming. Thought we were going to do it just going to be doing an AC Milan preview tomorrow. But you wake up and we see all the news left, right, and centre about Nkunku. Then later on about Gvardiol. Also some Chelsea Academy scouting software, which then I read up on. We've been using for 2 years already, anyway. But now we've signed a final agreement or whatever it is. But we will talk about all the latest news because today there is actually quite a bit of news. It's very interesting. We will share our thoughts. We will share the actual news themselves, if obviously you are not like ourselves and have time all day to actually see news. But Pice, thank you for joining me. As always, of course, please do check out Pice's website. It's linked down in the description, of course. Pice, usually I sit here at the beginning of streams and I then try to waffle through the news. And then I take it to you. I'm like, what do you have to say? And I'm like, you know the news much better than me. Why don't I just let you say the news, basically? So, Pice, what is the news? What came out this morning? Obviously, we were speaking a few days ago. I don't remember when exactly, but a few days ago, we were talking about that secret medical that Nkunku apparently had for Chelsea. And we were a little bit confused at the time why that was happening and how that was happening. But what we heard today made a lot more sense, right?
Yeah, 100%. David Ornstein's Monday column usually has a lot of information in it every week. Always look forward to it because you never know what he's got in there. So to see that the main story, I would say, in a footballing sense, in terms of transfers at least, was the Nkunku story. And he said that Chelsea have already committed to paying a higher fee than the 52.7 million release clause. And he's actually signed a pre-contract agreement with Chelsea now. I mean, Fabrizio said that obviously we was looking, or the plan B was to basically trigger the option, and he had a verbal agreement, but Ornstein's saying he's actually signed a pre-agreement. So it's a bit more than a verbal agreement. He's actually signed something. So I think that was important. And who knows what the fee will be? I don't think it'll be much more. But again, on his, he went on the Athletic podcast, explained it in a bit more detail, said that it's basically done and dusted. Chelsea have been smart here. Yeah, Ornstein said this. Chelsea have been smart here because basically they're going to pay this in like different payment terms, so in more years than just one solid release clause payment. So and they've decided to act fast because they know that next summer many clubs will try to sign strikers slash attackers like Real Madrid, Atletico. I think he said Inter Milan, Man United, teams like that. So yeah, very interesting. Yeah, Real Madrid. Yeah, very interesting. So yeah, I mean, it's just been moving so fast. Like, I don't know. It might even be announced soon. You know what I mean? It seems like it's like final details. Kind of like the Naby Keita deal that Liverpool had. We also had similar with Pulisic. But I think that was in January, wasn't it? So yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, definitely very interesting. Very interesting news coming up.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, I just put the Ornstein Monday column basically up on screen. We will go through it in a little bit more detail in a second. But like you say, very much still comparable to the deal that Liverpool struck with Leipzig for Naby Keita a fair few years ago. You mentioned Pulisic. Obviously, Pulisic we signed and then loaned him back for 6 months, essentially. I think that's how I remember anyway. Rather than it being like in January agreed and moved for the summer, which this now apparently seems to be. And like you say there, it seems like he signed something, or that's what Ornstein reported, right? So now Ben Jacobs on his Twitter thread, maybe we'll get to that later on as well. He basically said, while this agreement that he signed is not quite yet contractually binding, if that makes sense, in terms of, okay, he now must join us. But basically what it is maybe I've worded that wrong. But basically it's not a done deal just because Nkunku signed something, because obviously his club, RB Leipzig, still have to be on board as well, right? Which isn't quite there yet. But as Ornstein and then also Fabrizio later on said, in the final stages, apparently. And like you said there, he obviously has a release clause. The weird thing is he only signed a new contract in June of this year, which is a bit crazy when you think about it. But apparently that new contract, basically what that meant, gave him a pay rise, tied him to the club longer, but also gave him, I'm not sure if he had a release clause before, but certainly gave him a release clause now that isn't too crazy. 60 million euros, about 53, 54 million pounds. And we're now probably going to pay just over that. Who knows how much over, like Pice just said. But a little bit over because obviously the release clause only becomes active next summer. So you can't trigger the release clause right now, even if you wanted to, because it's not active right now. As far as I'm aware, it only becomes active June 1st, 2023. But obviously the situation is, if we agree with Leipzig, okay, we will pay more than that release clause that comes active next summer. They're like, well, next summer we'll only get their 60 million euros. Now we can get more, however much more that will be. But like Pi said, probably not that much more, right? So yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. And what's also interesting, Pice, and I saw you talk about this on Twitter as well, is that it's been reported that it's very much so a wish signing. Is wish signing the right word? But on the wish list of Todd Boehly himself. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Graham Potter doesn't want him. And it's also been confirmed that Chelsea have been scouting Nkunku for the past 2 years, so including under Roman Abramovich's realm. But still, it was certainly said that it was like a Todd Boehly signing, essentially. But have you heard anything in the sense of whether Graham Potter is or is not happy with it, or whether Graham Potter is or was not at least asked about his thoughts, or what do we think of that?
Well, I think I actually replied, I think, to CFC Daily earlier, and I was like, well, I don't really like this, to be honest, in a sense, because I don't feel like Graham Potter's like approved it, or I mean, I'm sure he's approved it. I mean, I remember Matt Law saying he's basically approved it, but at the same time, it's like this isn't someone that he's identified, or his scouting team, or Kyle McCauley has identified. This is someone that just Todd Boehly clearly wants to sign. Pretty sure that's what Ornstein said anyway, or one of these journalists.
One of them
said that this was essentially Todd Boehly was the one who wanted to do this. So, I mean, I just feel like the same when we had Tuchel, it was like, we was fed, Tuchel's approved such and such, and then a few months later when things started to go wrong, or it was all sort of, oh well, did he actually want this? You know what I mean? So I just hope that Graham Potter isn't going to be. I mean, this may just be a one-off anyway, because look, I don't think we're gonna. Maybe Gvardiol we'll get onto, but like, basically my worry is I just don't want players to be forced upon Potter and him to become kind of like a yes man. Oh yeah, we'll take him. Yeah, he looks good, sort of thing. Like, I want him and the new director of football and whoever else, the scouts and Cole McCauley, to be doing, the identifying. Because at the end of the day, Graham Potter's the manager. That's what he brought McCauley with him for, is because McCauley's the one who knows the players, or the type of players that he likes. So, like, if Graham Potter was to come out in a few months and say, oh yeah, I love Nkunku and da-da-da-da-da, I don't know if I'd necessarily believe that, to be honest with you. And that's just my point of view on it.
I hear that. One thing that I think is important to remember on what you just said, or what you just spoke about, is obviously we were told, at least all summer long, or even earlier than the summer, basically when it became clear that Todd Boehly would be the guy to take over Chelsea from Roman Abramovich, is that Todd Boehly and his consortium are extremely data-driven in everything that they do. So I don't think him and Nkunku being so heavily on Boehly's wish list, I don't think that's quite comparable to like a Shevchenko to Chelsea situation, where it was just like Roman wanted Shevchenko, and hence why he got him. Do you know what I mean? Even though Mourinho at the time didn't want him, right? I don't think it's quite comparable to that situation, because he's so data driven. So I'm like, well, if they're looking at the right data, does that matter? Because I assume with the fact that we sacked Tuchel, right, the way we did, and then appointed Graham Potter, my personal assumption is, and I don't have that, for guarantee, but is that they have certain similar opinions in terms of what data is the important data that we're looking for in terms of that new players must possess, if that makes sense, right? So that's why, and Matt Law did also say, to some extent, green light, but like Pi said, that was said about God knows how many players we signed on Tuchel, and then in hindsight, I was like, well, it was certainly said about Koundé multiple times, and then in the end, it was like, I actually didn't seem to be such a fan of him. So I'm like, well, which one is it? But I still think that that's important to remember, that with everything being so data-driven, I don't think you can just take it as, okay, Boehly just wants him for a banner, or Boehly just wants him because he likes the guy. You know what I mean? I think that is relatively important to remember. Let's quickly read through this article by Ornstein, even though obviously Pies and myself basically told you most of it already. But just to make it clear to you guys that we're not just waffling to you, and that was actually said by one of the most reliable journalists out there. So as you can see, headline, Nkunku to Chelsea agreed. The other parts we don't care about. If anybody anticipated Chelsea's new owners taking a rest once the transfer window closed, think again. Since the market shut on September 1st, the Todd Boehly Clearlay Group has changed managers, intensified their sporting director search, and lined up a deal to secure one of Europe's elite forwards next summer. News emerged last week that Chelsea have moved for Christopher Nkunku, with the RB Leipzig player undergoing medical tests prior to a proposed move for the 23-24 season. There has been some conjecture as to the status of the situation, but The Athletic is told Nkunku has signed a pre-contract agreement with the West Londoners and that the Premier League side have committed to paying their German Bundesliga counterparts a price in excess of the 24-year-old €60 million release clause. All right. What weird picture that is. With the clause not coming into effect until the campaign is over, Chelsea are spending a higher figure to secure Nkunku in advance and avoid a potentially intense battle for his services. Sources close to the matter say Chelsea have overcome competition, including from other leading English teams, to make the 8-cap France international a fundamental part of the rebuild going on at Stamford Bridge. That work on a new look Chelsea is expected to continue with the appointment of a sport director, given Boehly is occupying the role on an interim basis alongside his responsibilities as co-owner and chairman. Following unsuccessful attempts to install Liverpool executive Michael Edwards and later Christoph Freund from Red Bull Salzburg, numerous other candidates have been linked to the position. A range of second-round meetings will be, with possible choices, are scheduled to take place this week. Now, obviously, the latter part has nothing to do with Nkunku, but still, you get the gist. Now, the interesting part that I find here is, where is it? Sources close to the matter say Chelsea have overcome competition, which I find very interesting because now, does that mean other clubs don't want him as badly? Because surely if they hear what's happening, they're like, well, we can pay more than a release clause, do you know what I mean? But seemingly, it seems to be, going quite well. Now, how much Nkunku will actually play for France during the World Cup, we'll have to wait and see. But obviously, getting this done before a World Cup in which he theoretically, of course, could play really well is very good. Now, the one, I guess, doubt, if that's the right word to use, I would have is, well, what if he gets injured? So what if he does get injured, Pice? Because once we find an agreement with Leipzig, like Liverpool did with Naby Keita, which, like you said, I can't remember which journalist said, but there was a few that said, announcement could even be happening soon. So not only like next May or something, but like announce it reasonably soon that this transfer will happen next summer. So are you concerned at all about doing a move so early with the potential that a player could get injured? Or is that not something that worries you when the player is as young as Nkunku is? Now, obviously, doing that for a 32-year-old, like when we signed Aubameyang, that would be silly because if he's injured, well, that's his career done. But obviously, Nkunku is 24. But there is certain injuries after which you don't really want to sign a player. So is it a risk in that sense in your mind? Or does the pro of then therefore beating other clubs to the signing outweigh the risk of making the deal so early?
I feel like, I mean, everyone's going to say the whole 4-4-3 thing, but I was going to say I do feel like Todd Boehly is a smart guy overall, and I don't think he would commit to such a big deal if there wasn't some sort of, like, I was going to say, like, contracts haven't been signed. I think Ben Jacobs and a couple others said it's actually, like, illegal to do that right now anyway. So, there's agreements in place, but I guess as long as no papers are signed, then technically nothing really comes into play in terms of, like, I'm guessing we could pull out if he did get a big injury or something. Because I just don't like if they put us in a position as a club where, we have to pay this money no matter what, even if he gets like an ACL during the World Cup, that would be he would just go back down as like the most stupidest owner of all time. So I don't think he will do that somehow, some way. Hopefully, I God to hope not. Anyway,
I mean the agreement thing. Well, right now, obviously, what you said is 100% true. But once an official agreement between Chelsea and Leipzig is found, and once we announce it soon, if that so happens, once that happens, then it is contractually obliging.
Yeah,
but like obviously there could be certain clauses in it for injuries. That could be the case, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, hope so, but at the same time, would Leipzig agree to that? Because if they agree to that, they're like, well, because they have to get some sort of benefit as well from this, because they could be like, well, he's going to play a World Cup now. Maybe in January we could sell him for 80 million, and you're now paying us 62 or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not sure if they will be along with that, and maybe it's just us sitting here crossing fingers until the end of the season that Nkunku doesn't pick up an injury. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So, for example, like we touched on a couple of times now, the Navigator one. I'm not sure if Liverpool would have had some sort of clause in there that if Navigator picked up an injury that they wouldn't have had to go through with the signing. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. Let me get to a super chat that we've got a couple of minutes ago from Adrian. Appreciate it very much. Saying, hey guys, think we went early just to avoid competition. Doesn't mean we won't go for midfielders in January and summer. Simon Phillips said, so Alvarez in January. I agree. I don't think this has much to do with anything really, in terms of other targets, as such. Now, what we will do in January, I think a lot of which players we will still sign in January will have a lot of factors playing into it. Number one, how our season goes between now and then will play a big role. Also, Graham Potter taking a proper look at actually the whole squad. And then the next thing, how do our players get through the World Cup in terms of injuries? I think that will play a big role in terms of how and who will sign in January. Now, Alvarez could very much so still happen, but I still think, if Kante, for example, from now on until January is completely fit and plays basically every game and is everything perfect out of nowhere, then I think the whole signing of midfielder becomes a little less likely. Does it mean it won't happen? No, but it becomes a little less likely, at least in my... I mean, Pice, what do you think about that? Do you think the Alvarez in January is completely just regardless of whatever happens, or do you think that is a little bit dependent on certain factors between now and then?
To be honest with you, Alvarez was a weird one. I don't really know where it came from, even under sort of Tuchel. I didn't really understand it. I don't know whether it's another one of these data signings that they've found during the summer or something, because there was a lot of reports that they was using certain data systems or whatever. But I'm not really sure. I just feel like I kind of agree with you here in the fact that Graham Potter now has got to really look at this squad, and I don't feel like players that they looked at in the summer will necessarily be the same ones that we go for in January. I mean, I may be wrong, but I just feel like there's obviously links to what's his name, Caicedo from Brighton as well. So I know he's a bit more of a box to box, but yeah, there's been a lot of links lately to Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham. I think Fabrizio or Ornstein, I keep forgetting which one said it. Actually, no, it was Matt Law, wasn't it? He said we tried to jump in the queue for it or outmuscle or do something for Bellingham. So, I mean, spending 40, 50 million on Alvarez and then going to buy, say, Declan Rice doesn't really make sense. But if you was to buy a DM and then sign Jude Bellingham, it makes a bit more sense because Bellingham's more of a box to box. So, we have to, I want us to plan things correctly. And I feel like for January at least, there's not to say that discussions won't be going on behind closed doors, that we're just literally completed the signing pretty much for the summer. So just because we're playing games, it doesn't mean they're not talking about January. The one thing we do know about these owners is they like to plan in advance and they like to be fast. So discussions may be happening. For Alvarez specifically, I'm really not sure on that one. For some reason, I can't see it happening, but I may be completely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it depends on our injuries. It also depends on Alvarez getting through, from now to January, including the World Cup, which he obviously will take part in with Mexico, injury-free. So obviously, if Alvarez gets injured, then we won't be signing him in January, right? So there's always factors, and you can never be too sure of things too far in advance, which is why the whole announcement soon for Nkunku thing is actually a real thing. Now, I'm personally a huge, my biggest pro it does this, and we'll talk about the player in a bit more depth in a second. The biggest fan I am of this is look at what we experienced in the last, 12 months, let's say, with the whole Koundé thing. Now, we were basically on the verge of signing him summer 2021, then we didn't. Then we were all super convinced that we would sign him summer 2022. We were told as much. Even after the takeover was completed, it was happening. And then it all of a sudden didn't happen. And then God knows what the reasons are. Various different reasons have been reported. Boehly staying in too long, Tuchel changing his mind. God knows what the reason was in the end. But also Wesley Fofana. I mean, sure, it seemed just a very unattainable transfer at the beginning of the summer. But even by the time we started actually bidding for him, it took us, a month in the summer to actually get it done. And a month, by the way, towards the end of it, I think, pre-season, and then multiple games that, if he had signed earlier, would have put him in a much easier, more comfortable position of being at a new club and stuff. So that's, in my opinion, the biggest deal if this does actually so happen, because I don't want to jump the gun too much, because we did that for Christoph Freund and we know how that went. So until it's done, and I see Chelsea post, okay, we're signing Christopher Nkunku in summer 2023. Until then, there's still a little bit of a little small chance that things don't happen, but looking likely at the moment. But like I say, he will just join up with the squad at the very start of preseason next summer. No ifs, no buts, no maybes, no what if we take too long to agree, what if this, what if that. And that, in my opinion, is the best thing. And if we can get multiple signings that way, a bit like Man City did with Erling Haaland, fantastic. Because I absolutely despise this time wasting and going for the certain targets, and then you go to another target and bid rejected, and then you bid another bid, and it's the same size of bid anyway, just different flipping payment structure. Just you don't have time for that in flipping summer when we're already playing Premier League games at the time. Do that shit some other time. Do you know what I mean? And to be fair, that's what they're doing. Do you see that as the biggest pro, or is the biggest pro the player to you? I almost find that a bigger pro than the player himself. That we get in a player that we seemingly want. Hopefully Potter wants him as well. But we're just making sure it's done from the get-go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you were saying in terms of like Chelsea beating competition, look, definitely, I think this has been kept so under wraps that I think what's helped as well is that our relationship with Leipzig and the Red Bull Group clearly over the summer. I think, again, also I mentioned that we've got an excellent relationship. You described it with them. So, yeah, like this has definitely been kept under complete secret. No other club has had a clue about this, and that is obviously the biggest pro for me. I 100% agree that we've kept it quiet and we've managed to do this behind the scenes. Like this is the sort of deal that not only comes to a shock as Chelsea fans, but will come as a shock to sort of, if you ask other Premier League managers, oh, what do you think about that signing? And they'll be like, wow, I didn't really think about that. I didn't really didn't hear about it kind of thing. So yeah, I agree. It's definitely one of the biggest pros, if not the biggest.
Absolutely. Let's take a little look at the player himself. And now, neither myself nor Pice will claim to be an absolute expert on him. We will probably, maybe I should have asked your expert to come on this, but once it gets announced, we need to have another stream about it anyway. So maybe I'll try to get your expert involved in that one then. But just to take a little bit of a look, and we'll look at stats from past seasons. Now, here in terms of main positions, it says second striker, other positions, attacking midfield, centre forward. It's certainly also been deployed as a winger. But that's going to be very interesting what we're going to do with him. You see his height here in feet, that is about, let me think, 5'10". No, maybe between 5'9" and 5'10"-ish is 175. So not super short, but certainly not tall in terms of a real striker, certainly not ideal. Here it says market value 80 million euros, which is 20 million higher than his release clause. So, and we're only paying a little bit over that. So apparently, so that's quite good. And like I say, just confirmation of what I told you earlier, he signed his last contract extension actually only in June of this year, which that's the part that's almost the craziest to me, that what's happening here. And then it gets even crazier when we talk about Gvardiol, which we will do soon. Now, Pice, in terms of positions, now, of course, we still don't know for sure what exact formations Graham Potter is actually going to use. But where do you see him fitting in? Now, here it says second striker, but do you see us being in a position where we're going to play two strikers regularly? Do you think it's going to play like as a 10? Or is he just going to be used, in various positions across the attack, shall we say? Because he can play on the wing, he can play up top, can play second striker like a front two, and he can certainly play as a 10. So what do you expect in that sense, mate?
Again, like, I'm not going to claim to be an expert. I don't really know, to be honest, at the moment. I feel one thing that I found interesting was that Fabrizio's podcast today, he said that Chelsea still will be there for Rafael Leão. Now, when I heard that, I was like, wow. First off, wow, if we got both of them. But second off, I thought that's very interesting. That made me more think he might play as kind of like a number 10 and Sterling and Leão on the wings. Maybe Sterling goes to the right, Leão on the left. But again, I just think a lot of people have, I've seen on Twitter.
Mate. What are these ads here? This website, can they stop screwing me over? Yeah, go on.
A lot of people have been sort of saying, this is my lineup with him and da-da-da. And I'm just like Graham Potter doesn't even hardly know the current guys and where he's going to play these guys. So let him relax and let him think about that, towards the next summer. I'm sure he'll find a position for him. But he's definitely versatile. I mean, he's played off the left. He's definitely played second striker, attacking mid. Not sure how many times off the right, and centre forward. But I think, he's a very versatile player. And I think also this has worried Chelsea fans a little bit because they're like, oh, this is just another Kai Havertz, he can play this, that, and that, but he hasn't got a set position. Huge red flag that no one knows his best position. But I see it in a sense, but then you look at it the other way. If there's a player there that can play 3 different attacking positions and he performs actually really well in all of them, that's like an even bigger bonus. For me, it's only a red flag if it's like, okay, he can play okay in there, you know what I mean? But you get what I'm trying to say. Like it's not always a red flag to be good in multiple positions or play in multiple positions, I should say.
No, absolutely not. And I think, I think it's almost. I personally find it a bit silly to think of it that way, because when you move clubs, especially when you move clubs from different leagues, shall I say, let's say he only played as a number 10, or let's say he only played as a winger so far basically in his career, and we'll get to look at how many, I mean, you can see it down here, how many bloody positions he's played in. But when that is the case, how do you know for sure in advance if someone's only good at one position, in particular, one position at one club in one league? How do you know whether that's going to translate to a different club in a different league? So the fact that he's versatile and capable of playing in different positions, in my opinion, makes it more likely for him to succeed for Chelsea. Because even if we give him a one set position, which let's see whether we will do that or not, him being able to do multiple different things makes him more likely to be able to deal with the demands from the Premier League. Because if you're only good at one thing and that thing doesn't work, then you're screwed. Look at Werner. He's good at one thing and then the finishing was lacking and then he was screwed in the Prem. Let's be honest. And now Lukaku is maybe a little bit of a different situation because different things led to his drastic downfall, right? But still, but look at this here. I mean, they said main positions and stuff. I find it very odd. Like, really, transfer market? SS? Really? Come on. You're a German website and you're going to shortcut things with SS. Are you sure? Are you sure? Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe think about that one again. But anyway, I didn't even know that. Look, when you hover the mouse over the cursor over the position, it says how many games he's played there. Very interesting, that. Which, the crazy part is, apparently, the most games in his career, he's played as a central midfielder. And from central midfield, he scored 12 goals and had 13 assists in 67 games. That ain't half bad. Right back, that was probably Thomas Tuchel, so cheers, lad. That one game at right back, even though I thought he was playing right wing back, which is probably more right mid, and he played a few games there. But still, look at it, like 7 different positions, or can I count? Did I count wrong? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions, my bad. 8 positions. He played more than 10 games in his career. The kid's only 24. Do you know how mad that is? And as you can see from these stats, now, except maybe the very bottom ones, my guy is productive in all of them. Like I say, 12 goals, 13 assists from central midfield, attacking midfield, 18 goals, 16 assists in 47 appearances. That is mental, mind you. Like, how much is that? Like, that's 34 goal contributions in 47 games. It's crazy. Second striker, you have 34 goal contributions in 36 games. Mental. Now, will that necessarily translate to the Premier League quite as such? Now, I'm gonna say no. But then you also have Erling Haaland, who is even better in the Premier League than he was in the Bundesliga. Now, for Haaland, the reason is that he went from Dortmund to City. So, that's why. Not just that all of a sudden the Premier League's worse than the Bundesliga. But I want to highlight this season. Obviously, when I say this season, is this one. But last season, this season that I'm highlighting here, my guy played 34 games, scored 20 goals, assisted 15 goals. That is mental. That is crazy. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is honestly, frankly, ridiculous. More goal contributions than goals is very rare, especially for, now he's an attacking player, but still like not their main outlet player. Now, maybe he was that in that season, to be fair. And even this season, ignore the right-hand side, YouTube, please. 8 games, 6 goals, and no assists so far, but still, 20 goals and 15 assists and being as productive in so many different positions. Again, these are only stats. This is not like I haven't seen enough of him to have a full eye test judgment on it yet. But these stats certainly let you hope, right?
100%, 100%. I do agree with you. This definitely won't translate into Chelsea, I don't think. We've seen, I mean, Werner's got a ridiculous record in the Bundesliga, and I think even last game, Werner scored 2 and Nkunku scored 2. Yeah, I mean, it definitely, of course, they're much worse opponents. It's a different league, but the thing is, he's definitely got ability. And although he didn't do amazing at PSG, he still played for PSG. So for me, that's a big plus in the first place, just to even be in PSG's team. And yeah, I think he's definitely got talent from what I've watched. He's got technical ability from what I can see, which is the biggest thing for me when going from sort of a Bundesliga. You know, people saying, "Oh, it's just another team of Werner." Like, they're complete different players, for God's sake. Like, they're just completely different. Although he scored a lot of goals running in behind, he's
That's
definitely,
because Leipzig play that way, not because he
yeah, like,
must play that way.
and also, like, I don't know why people are saying that's a bad thing. I mean, did you watch us at the weekend? All we tried to do was play balls in behind. We were very direct. So, I mean, if we're going to be like that, then he might even suit us even more than being a possession-based team. But yeah, I think he's definitely got talent. I'm looking forward to watching him at the World Cup if he gets there as well and plays
He'll
some
get
games.
there, but how many minutes he'll get?
Yeah, I mean, even off the bench though. I know France have got an amazing team, but it would just be nice to sort of see him more. And I'm definitely going to be watching Leipzig now. Unfortunately, I have to watch Werner again, but definitely going to be watching them to see how he does for the rest of this season, because he's just always been productive. Always seems to get goals. And another thing I will say just before I move back onto is that people were telling me again, obviously Werner scored he got so many chances in the Bundesliga. Like, although it was different and Werner struggled, can we just actually take a bit of a recap? Let's refresh our memories. How many chances did Werner actually have for Chelsea? He had plenty of chances to score goals at this club. He found space. He had plenty of chances to finish. Okay, like,
he just can't finish.
He just can't finish. Whereas Nkunku seems a very, very good finisher. He seems to place his shot brilliantly from what I've seen. Some of his goals I've seen, just like even one-on-ones, his shot selection is really, really good from what I've seen.
Timo Werner's second goal on the weekend was an unbelievable finish as well. And if you'd seen that, you're like, well, he's going to fly anyway. So,
but I mean, we did see a few goals though from Werner where we were like, okay, like, damn, that's pretty good. But the thing is, with Werner,
first goal for Chelsea outside the box against Spurs.
Yeah, I think with Werner though, he just relied too much on his pace and he didn't have anything else. Whereas I feel like Nkunku's just a bit more of a footballer, to be honest. Like,
and hopefully under Graham Potter, we will also become a better attacking team than we have
exactly
too many years.
This is what I'm saying. Like, people aren't taking in the fact that Graham Potter is hopefully going to be giving us, more attacking football than we saw under Tuchel. That's the hope anyway, from a fan's point of view. Even though of course, I was a big defender, I didn't think Tuchel was the main problem. I still think certain players are the main problem. I think we saw that again on the weekend. But yeah, over long term, I think definitely he can be a great signing for us. At least a great fit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I'll get to Richard's super chat in just a second. Someone said also look at his Champions League stats from that season. Well, basically from last season. 6 games, 7 goals, 2 assists. And we're talking Champions League now. Maybe a lot of those.
Hat-trick against City, by the way.
Hat-trick against City. There you go. So you can't exactly say he only came against Farmers. Do you know what I mean? The season before that, 6 goals, 7 assists. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume that's probably where he played a bit deeper, because somewhere these 67 centimetre games must have come from, right? They must have played that position somewhere. And he didn't play even 67 games at PSG, maybe in total, but, so they must have come from somewhere. And also in his first Bundesliga season, 5 goals and 15 assists. And this is now 3 years ago, essentially, right? And he's 24 now. So that was at a very, very young age. Now, obviously, Haaland and Mbappe are ruining the whole young age thing. But like Messi did when he was young, and like Ronaldo did when he was young, you got to ignore those crazy ones, right? You got to ignore the Mbappes and the Haalands. You can't compare the other footballers to those footballers. They're different, We just have to accept that. Yeah, it would be nice to get one of those someday, but there's only 2 or 3 of those per generation, if that. So, you got to be you got to reel in a little bit. But let me highlight that super chat by Richard too. To some extent, maybe it's a fair point. to some extent, it's also like, let people be happy. Do you know what I mean? I mean, Richard says, I'm wondering why everyone is getting super excited over this. This will be Bundesliga player number X, whatever at this point. We have had, and have we had one succeed yet? Now, yes, Michael Ballack did pretty well, mate, but obviously that's a while ago. Since then, have we signed anyone good from the Bundesliga? Obviously,
Havertz, I know this is obviously a very weak point, but Havertz did win us the Champions League. So, I mean, even for that, sentimental-wise, you could say that's just a success right there because he literally won us the Champions League. So,
but by the way, and I know Pies, you've also been very critical of Havertz at times, and I'm not saying anyone shouldn't be critical of Kai Havertz at times because he most certainly warranted it. But sometimes people put it like, oh, because the Champions League final goal, that's why he gets it off for everything. I'm like, people that say it like that, I'm like, I feel like you don't appreciate the fact enough that he won us the Champions League. Like, I know you're saying, he only lives with that goal. Yeah, but it's the Champions League winning goal. We've only won 2 of those.
Bro, they said it with Tuchel. They said Tuchel's just another Di Matteo. Like, do you know the disrespect in that? Like, it's just outrageous. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They do it all the time. It's fucking outrageous, bro. The thing is, time has moved on since we won that everyone's just forgotten what that was actually like. And when we get that feeling back again, whenever we win the third one, you'll get it again, and then a few months later you'll see
again in 3 months.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous, bro. That time was one of the best moments of my life. That run was just outrageous. Like, I had to bring something back up the other day in one of my group chats. Like, saw people slandering Tuchel, saying he was defensive and stuff like that. Like, in that Champions League run, we out XG'd every single team in the run, like, and we played very good teams. And then they were like, but there was no fans, and like, it's just anything to discredit Havertz or Tuchel, or even Mount hasn't been playing badly lately. Has been playing badly. Got the assist in the Champions League final. Everyone forgets that, you know what I mean? So it is what it is.
People also forget about, like, we're not always that positive of Christian Pulisic, but also he played a huge part in that.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
People forget these things too easy. Like, you don't just win a Champions League every year. Like, I know Real Madrid, especially younger football fans, have kind of been skewed by Real Madrid. Until Real Madrid did that between 16 to 19 or whatever, they won 3 in a row, 4 in a row, whatever they did. Until that, no team in history, well, not in history, but since the European Cup was officially named the Champions League in the 90s, not one team managed to win that trophy back-to-back. We won that twice. Arsenal have never won the Champions League. City have never won the Champions League. Manchester United, in a whole illustrious, career history, have won it, 2 or 3 times the Champions League? Like, this is not a thing the clubs just win. And to say, he only did that, mate, that's the biggest thing you can do in club football, man. So, like, I understand that doesn't mean you can't criticize him for being bad against Palace or being bad against God knows who. Of course you can, you should. But to say, if people like him because of that, we support this football club. Of course we're going to forever and always like the guy that wins the fucking Champions League, man. Anyone that doesn't, you're stupid. Because either you don't support the club enough then, or you don't understand the value of the Champions League. If you don't like a player that won us the Champions League, then you're just dumb. Sorry. But like that, to me, it's always been ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, he won us the Champions League. Exactly. What bigger thing can there ever be? Like, do you know what I mean, man? Piss me off. But anyway, the Bundesliga thing is still somewhat relevant, though, even though I just de-highlighted the comment by Richard. Do you? And also, not only is it Bundesliga, it's also Leipzig. So I don't really know. It does make me a little bit more concerned, 100%, than if, say, the player came from, I don't know, Atletico Madrid, let's say a random team that's also in an abroad league. Makes me a little bit more concerned, but you can never they're not all the same, right? Havertz and Werner don't or didn't struggle for the same reasons. Nkunku and Werner are completely different type of players. Like, one has a touch, the other one doesn't. One can dribble, the other one can't. One can pass, the other one can't. The only thing they both do is running behind. So that's literally about your only similarity. Do you know what I mean? One's German, one's French. Don't get much more different than that. Do you know what I mean? But Pies, is there a little bit in you that still is a little bit concerned another Leipzig, another Bundesliga player, or how do you see that?
I don't think it's necessarily to do with Leipzig or I was going to say all Bundesliga. I mean, it's a little bit Bundesliga, but for me, it's all about sort of mentality as well. Like, how is he going to deal with the bad games in the Premier League? How mentally strong is he? You know what I mean? Because I think in the past, not even just the Bundesliga, but from other leagues like Alvaro Morata from Spain, um, pressure ate them up. I think very quickly, and I think Nkunku's obviously young, but I think what is he? I think he's 25. So I
24,
mean,
but he turns 25 in
24.
November,
Yeah.
this
See,
November.
I want to learn a bit more about the player, in terms of just his background, his mentality, his upbringing, that sort of thing as well, because I think that's a big side of it, as well these days. It's not just about the league and yeah, that sort of thing. Like everyone on Twitter for me is just kind of saying, "Oh, I'm scared because of Leipzig, and I'm scared because Havertz hasn't been good in the Premier League, or hasn't been as good as we'd like him to be." Like that's not really a reason. You know what I mean? Like it's just not.
Yeah,
Like
because
not
there
every
is also
player is
other
comparable.
examples. Like there is Leroy Sané, who came from Schalke to Man City, was great. Gone back to the Bundesliga, is great. There is, I mean, Erling Haaland right now. Now I know I said don't take Erling Haaland as an example because he's a freak of nature, and he is. But still, there is plenty of Bundesliga players that have come to the Premier League and succeeded. Now, mind you, at Chelsea, in recent times they have not. But we're talking about two examples. Well, I guess three with Christian Pulisic. But we're talking about 2 or 3 examples here. It's not like we're talking 15. And one other positive thing, you go to his injury history. My guy's had 3 injuries in his whole career. And one of them was coronavirus, which apparently only put him out for 2 days. So my guy's the immune system of an absolute monster. Like, compare that to Christian Pulisic's injury record, or Kante's injury record, or Kovacic's injury record, or I'm sure plenty other injury-prone players that I can't think of now. But that's good to see, isn't it, guys? 3 injuries.
100%.
And one of them isn't even an injury.
Yeah.
Back trouble once. He missed 1 game, was out for 7 days, and one's ankle problems. Do you know what I mean? Like, nothing serious ever. No muscle injuries. Not one muscle injury in there as well. That's good.
Literally hardly any injuries, which is great to see. And yeah, just on the overall point of like Bundesliga and stuff like that, like I just feel like it's incredibly stupid, to be honest, just to kind of write a player off just because others haven't succeeded here in terms of Chelsea. Like, if anything, the law of averages means surely we're going to get someone from the Bundesliga who does actually well sometime soon. So, yeah, I mean, look, let's see. Like, just watch the player for the rest of this season. Watch him in certain situations. Watch him when he gets pressed. Watch him in tight spaces. Watch, can he pick out a pass? Just watch Leipzig this season and make your own judgment. Don't just judge based off, oh, we've had Timo Werner, Pulisic, and Havertz who haven't done absolutely amazing. You know what I mean? Each one of those, by the way, still had good moments for Chelsea. Still scored big goals for Chelsea. So let's not act like they're absolute complete flops. Werner did score some big goals for Chelsea, especially during that Champions League run. Even last season, Bernabeu away. Played brilliant. Did anyone expect that? No. I know we went out, but still, people just forget things,
That's true. I mean, people also forget the bad things, I guess, but that's just how the brain works, I suppose. But Richard has followed his super chat from early out with another one saying, my worry is the amount of space the Bundesliga gives players to move around and maneuver. And the difference is physicality, not bashing players, not bashing a player.
See, physicality, I think, is actually, from what I've seen, he can put himself about there, especially when he goes on runs. I don't think he's a weak player for sure. If that's the problem that you have, Richard, I think from what I've seen, he definitely holds his own. It's like people think Sterling is quite weak, but sometimes the smaller players are quite deceivingly strong.
Yeah, no, I do agree with this. Now, in general, I still do absolutely hear Richard's worry, shall I say, because yes, the Bundesliga does give more space because they just, on average, play a little bit differently because more teams play a pressing style of football, right? Now, even against Bayern Munich, more teams play a pressing style of football. Therefore, more spaces are exploited. Now, if you watch a game, I don't know what the best example would be, like Leeds against Bournemouth or Forest or Fulham nowadays. They will have spaces in those games. Just when we play against those teams, they won't give us spaces because against us, they don't they know their best way of winning is stopping us from having space and then trying to counterattack us. Against teams where they believe that they can win in a normal, just go against each other basis, there is also space, right? That's the biggest difference here. It's less so a league difference. It's more a team difference, I personally find anyway. Because I think if you put Chelsea in the Bundesliga, a lot of Bundesliga teams would also start doing that. But they don't have to because they only play Bayern once. And all the other teams, including Dortmund, including Leipzig, they can, on their day, beat. Do you know what I mean? And every now and again, even Bayern, of course. But by playing normally, without having to park the bus every game, that's just why it doesn't happen there. But because the super teams in the Premier League are so super, even though the wording sounds weird, that's why they need to do things like that. But still, the worry that you say is absolutely valid. How will he be able to perform when he doesn't have as much space? But that worry goes for every player in the world, though. Like whether we sign a player from Real Madrid, or whether we sign a player from Barcelona, or sign a player from Inter Milan, or a player from AC Milan. Also, the Serie A gives more space than the Premier League does. So that worry that you have basically applies to a player from every league that's not the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I'm like, yeah, it's a fair worry. But if that worry is so high for you that you're not going to be excited about any potential signing from abroad, then you're going to have a miserable life as a Chelsea fan, because we're going to sign players from abroad. And that problem basically exists for every player from abroad. Wouldn't you agree, Pies? Like, I don't think this is just purely a Bundesliga thing. Like, with Jorginho, we say, he isn't quick enough for the Premier League, isn't strong enough for the Premier League. Okay. Then, with Morata, it's like, in Spain and Italy had so much more space. Do you know what I mean? Like, those problems exist from everywhere, not just from the Bundesliga.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, in fact, Premier League's the best league in the world. Anyone can beat anyone. Of course, smaller teams beat bigger teams in other leagues, but not as common as they do in the Premier League. And even if the smaller teams...
you say that, City and Liverpool have lost about 3 games in the last 4 seasons combined. So, well, Liverpool not this season now, but do you know what I mean?
But even if they don't win, they always give the bigger teams a game. So especially Chelsea in recent years, I mean, Chelsea have struggled massively against some of the smaller teams, and I feel like you just have to look at the overall package of a player more than just Bundesliga gives more space. Well, yeah, okay, that's factually true, but is there anything else about said player that we could be signing, in this case Nkunku, that could combat that? So is he a good space finder? Can he move well off the ball? Both things, apparently, yes, he can, from what I've been reading. So there's more to it than just, okay, he's screwed because there's not a lot of space. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Has he got technique on the ball? You know what I mean? Yes, he clearly has. He's got way more than Timo Werner. So just because there's more space doesn't mean that players are going to flop. Like, look at Rafael Leao as well. Like, people are saying, or people could say, look, Serie A defenders are not as good. He goes on crazy dribbles. Yeah, but look at his profile. Like, look how he's a 6'2", fast, strong winger. Like, that profile for me suits the Premier League perfectly. He kind of like reminds me of Wilf Zaha. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he reminds me of that profile on the wing that's just powerful,
physically
strong,
much bigger
fast.
than Zaha.
Even bigger. But like, I'm just talking about how they run and dribble and things like that. Like, reminds me exactly like Zaha. And I just think you just got to look at the player more than the league, in my opinion.
But yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I mean, like I say, there's obviously going to be a difference in how players deal with having space and not having space, but pretty much every player in the whole world will find it a bit easier to play when they have more space. That will be for every player in the world. Like, if you put Mount in the Bundesliga, he would probably have 25 goals and 13 assists or something. But in the Premier League, he's not good enough. Havertz, if you send Havertz to Bayern, he'd probably score goals like Lewandowski did. Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's then Bayern. And then you're like, they're not good enough, but they're good enough. But then once they would go there, see, it was just Chelsea's fault that he wasn't that good. Do you know what I mean? They don't understand the translation. Now, does that mean Havertz needs to do better? Of course he does. But I think we need to move on. And we spent longer talking about Nkunku than I thought we would, to be fair. But the other story, and, allow you to basically talk through the news on it again. But Chelsea have essentially been linked to also be signing Josko Gvardiol, basically making it an RB Leipzig double. So what exactly is the latest on that before? Or do you think we should just read through the article, because the Matt Law article, because that basically explains everything anyway?
Pretty much, yeah. Everything's kind of in that article, I'd say.
Fair play. I'll just read through it then quickly. Chelsea hope to sign Josko Gvardiol alongside, well, that's a typo, Christopher Nkunku. RB Leipzig's Croatian defender has a release clause in excess of £40 million. It's basically £43 million. Not sure why he's using this dramatic word excess, but Matt Law for you. But it's regarded as one of the best defensive prospects in Europe. There's a picture. Against Austria. In this game against Austria, he was not very good, I will say. But, that's a topic for in 5 minutes. Chelsea would try to complete a double raid on RB Leipzig by bringing defender Josko Gvardiol to Stamford Bridge alongside. But is he called Christoph? I swear everywhere I've read his name is Christopher. So why is he saying Christoph?
No, it's Christopher. Maybe he's got caught up with Christoph Freund, or was that even Christopher? I don't even know.
No, that was Christoph, but without an E.
Was it? All right.
He even says Christoph. He has another typo in there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely Christopher.
Yeah, let's call him Christoph. I'm a fan. Who, as we of course already discussed, has signed a pre-contract agreement with Chelsea. Chelsea are set to pay slightly more than Nkunku's blah, blah, blah. Release clause to ensure they sign him next summer, having already put the 24-year-old through medical examinations. Nkunku's pre-contract agreement means he will play out the season in Germany before moving to Chelsea, barring any major hitches. Let's just move on to the Gvardiol thing. Just as Chelsea have capitalized on the Nkunku situation, Gvardiol has a release clause in the Leipzig contract he signed this summer, following interest from Chelsea. The Croatian defender's release clause is thought to be set around £43.6 million. And Chelsea held advanced talks with Leipzig this summer about signing the 20-year-old, who is rated as one of Europe's best defensive prospects. Chelsea signed Wesley Fofana and Kalidou Koulibaly in the summer transfer window, but with Thiago Silva aged 38 and Cesar Azpilicueta celebrating his 33rd birthday in August, the strong interest in Gvardiol remains. Koulibaly is yet to play under the new head coach Graham Potter after the 31-year-old suffered a difficult start to Chelsea's career. And despite spending almost £300 million this summer, Chelsea are already planning to make more significant additions, including an attempt to muscle in on the queue of clubs hoping to sign midfielder Jude Bellingham and a bid for West Ham United's Declan Rice still on the radar. Then goalkeeper situation, we discussed that previously. And then at the end it says, with Chelsea needing to raise cash if they are to keep spending, the pre-contract agreement with Nkunku raises fresh question marks over the long-term futures of Christian Pulisic, Hakim Ziyech and Armando Broja. Now, not sure why Armando Broja would even be remotely affected by this personally, but sure. Pulisic and Ziyech is obviously a different situation, but they both want to leave anyway, so it's not exactly fresh questions, is it? But anyway, so that's basically the summary of it. There's so many things I don't understand about this. Now, obviously, you said it a bit. Haaland kind of did similar things as well to some extent, or Dortmund with Haaland, shall I say. But we apparently bid €90 million, about £78 million for Gvardiol very late in the summer transfer window, and they said no. Instead, a day or two later, he signed a contract extension. And now we find out this contract extension has a release clause of 43 or nearly £44 million in it, which is almost half of what we offered them in the summer. Which, so what? I understand they wanted to keep the player for a year. Maybe they didn't feel they had enough time to find an adequate replacement in time before the transfer window shut and everything. But why they agreed to give him such a low release clause, I'm not 100% sure. But will I take it? 100%. Now, I will take you back to the summer, my thoughts back in the summer, where I was like, and I think someone worded it very well on Twitter, and I read it earlier. I can't remember who it was, though, unfortunately. I don't see the necessity in Gvardiol. But what I do see is that it's an opportunity that we might as well pick up on. But then again, that was said about Kai Havertz, and people say aren't happy with that one. But just because the Kai Havertz opportunity didn't quite work out as maybe we hoped, but there's still hope. That doesn't mean the Gvardiol one won't turn out the same way. If you can get a player that's basically wanted by every single club in Europe for about 40 and a bit million pounds, now chances are we'll probably have to pay a little bit over that as well to make sure we don't get into a bidding or like a fight of who offers him a better contract and who he finds more enticing as a club, and maybe we'll pay over it as well to find an early agreement. Who knows? But I still don't really see the point, if I'm honest. Again, if you can get him for as cheap, he's a great player. Hopefully, I haven't seen that much of him to again have a full judgment on it. When I last saw him play for Croatia against Austria, I wasn't impressed. But that's one game. Doesn't mean he's not good. But we've just signed Fofana, who's 21. Forget his exact.
What was you not impressed by? Just out of interest.
A lot of things. Now he
because I've
passed
heard
like Kurt Zuma. You know how Zuma just looks weird when passing. Looks like he can't pass the ball at all. That's what Gvardiol looked like in that game.
yeah, it's
which
just
was
like
weird.
I've heard many different things. Like loads of people have told me he's one of the best passers in world football.
Exactly. No, that's what I heard as
stats.
well. And maybe by that judgment, he didn't look that great at passing. But yeah, he didn't look that
Yeah,
competent.
but I've definitely heard that like
But yeah,
defensively, I've definitely heard a lot of people say that he's a bit like suspect. He's definitely really raw. I think he had a game, Leipzig had a game, I think was it last year? They played Rangers. He got absolutely like just toyed with. And I think my assumption at the moment, just from what I've been hearing, is like he's not a very good defender, but I mean he must be. He's only 20. The thing I don't understand is like we've got Colwell. Now, if Silva's gonna leave, and it's like Gvardiol, Fofana, Koulibaly, Colwell, that's 4 centre backs. But I don't know. I just think I don't know if Silva's gonna leave. You know, I really don't. And I feel like even with those 4, it's like that's a very young crop of defenders right there. Like
that's exactly.
Koulibaly's the most experienced guy, and he can't even get in the team right now. Like that's kind of worrying, in my opinion.
It is. And I think you made an important point. Like Gvardiol is 20. No 20-year-old centre back is perfect. If you're 20 and you're a centre back, you're lying about and you're perfect already. You're lying about your age. Do you know what I mean? That's impossible. How can you possibly be perfect at that? You only got into men's football 2-3 years ago. How you in 2-3 years going to have learned all the arts of defending? You can't have, because certain types of attacking you only have to deal with once you get into adult football, right? You're not going to have to deal with those things as a youth footballer. So just because he's a high prospect doesn't mean he's perfect yet. That's the difference between signing someone that's 20 and signing someone that's 31. Koulibaly needs obviously a little bit of adaptation time in the Premier League, but once that period is done, we should see the best Koulibaly that we can at the moment. But Josko Gvardiol, once he signs, won't be the best Josko Gvardiol for another 5, 6, 7 years. Now, but the age thing is exactly what I'm thinking, because we have Fofana, like I say, we just signed him for nearly £80 million. He's 21? We also just signed, what's his face? I can't think of it. Koulibaly, who is older, but also not so old that he will leave next year, right? Then you have Thiago Silva, who is 38, but by far our best defender at the moment. We have Trevor Chalobah, who is young, but who knows how much he'll play this year. Then if he doesn't, he'll probably leave eventually. And we also just paid extra for Marc Cucurella to make sure that Brighton take Levi Colwill on loan rather than a permanent move. And we're basically signing, it can't get a more direct rival for Levi Colwill than Josko Gvardiol. Both left-footed, both left-sided centre-backs, both with the potential to even play a left-back, as far as I'm aware. Gvardiol more so than Levi Colwill for sure, but still, both left-footed, both left-sided centre-backs, both basically the same age. Why are you doing that? Like, it was already Boehly that decided the whole loan thing for Colwill. So I'm like, why, at that point, why not just take the permanent move and not spend more for Cucurella? Do you see what I mean with that? And someone else said, like, we just have other priorities. Now, because we're doing it a year early, doesn't really matter, although we will talk about potentially in January. But I just don't, like, how much better is he than Levi Colwill? Now, right now, maybe quite a bit better, but how much of a better ceiling does he have than Levi Colwill? Is it worth not using Colwill to sign Gvardiol? Because I think both is impossible. I think both will never happen. Like, both being in the squad for a season or two, sure. But permanently, long term, they won't both be in the squad because they will both want to play and they can't both play. I mean, yeah, Ampadu, but Ampadu, I'm not even considering Ampadu, and it's already an issue. And then if you include an Ampadu in there as well, it becomes even more of an issue, that situation. So simple as that. Give Levi a year in the PL, and if he keeps up, of course. But if we are not going to keep them, Boehly clearly doesn't care about 10, 20 million extra somewhere, right? So that doesn't exactly suit that idea. And Tuchel says Silva is not meant to be playing every week in, week out. He needs to be replaced. Chalobah is not good enough. Koulibaly is 31. Why is this deal bad again? Koulibaly is 31. You just said it there. He's 31 or 37. He's 31. Koulibaly, if good enough, long term, can play week in, week out like Thiago Silva did the last 2 seasons, right? So if he's good enough, he will do. And do you want straight away? Yeah, what is this? I told you last time, Tuchel, man, you need to change your profile picture for your Super Chats, man. Come on. But do you want a back 2 or a back 3 of 21, 22, 20, and a 20-year-old? I don't want that. That's not going to win you trophies, is it? That's my only concern. But what do you think about all of those things, guys?
Pretty much agree with everything you've said. I definitely have my concerns. Over the player, over the sort of age of our whole back line. And definitely with Colwill. When you say it like that, in terms of like both left centre backs, both left footed, like I don't know if they can coexist. And I mean, as far as I'm aware, Colwill hasn't started a Premier League game either yet, so his loan is not going too well, which could set him back for another
I
year.
thought he started 1 at least, but I could be wrong.
I'm not sure. Maybe it's 1, but either way, he hasn't, made the impression that I think people have thought. And obviously, it's still early on in the season. They've just got a new manager, so let's hope he starts playing. But yeah, it's definitely hard to see them both succeed here long term. Like you say, I think Cole's very ambitious. He wants to play. Gvardiol's not going to join unless he's playing. So, I do think this might be one of those ones where, again, if we do sign him, it'll be another case of, we've beaten off competition. Because I think, who was it? I think, Fabrizio said in the summer that Man City want to sign him, apparently. So maybe it's a case of, look, Chelsea or Todd Boehly knows 2 clubs, 2 top clubs, maybe in Premier League clubs are going to try and sign him in the summer, so they want to try and do the deal early. I don't know, but again, if we're raiding Leipzig, like I just want Graham Potter to be not just okay with these signings, but actually want them, like actually want to use them. Because I think even if you look at Man United lately, I think a lot of Man United. One of my Man United mates has said to me, he's heard a few reports that have said they signed Casemiro, right, for 60 million, and or he said, all the reports were back then that Ten Hag was okay with it, and he doesn't even start him in the Manchester derby, and he's not been using him as much. And now some Man U fans think that was just a an ownership board signing thing. So it's very important that the manager actually buys in and wants to use these signings.
Absolutely, and I mean, with the way Graham Potter wants to play and how Marc Cucurella was used in that first game against RB Salzburg with that left centre back that kind of played like a left back anyway, like doing overlapping runs, even though we were playing left centre back in the back 3. And we didn't do that in the last game because we didn't really have that player available. Josko Gvardiol can be that player. Now, of course, he's much more centre back-y, if that's a word, than Marc Cucurella is. But because he can play left back and because he is, supposed to be good in the ball, even if it didn't quite look like that between Austria and Croatia. But again, that's one game. He might have just had a bad day. Happens. He can, I guess, fill that role and fill that position with someone different than Marc Cucurella and do it without being 5'8". Do you know what I mean? Which is quite useful if you're going to play him as a essentially centre back. But can Colwill do that? I don't know. And some people are saying you're comparing Colwill with Gvardiol. Now, I understand that some people say that that's silly. One's obviously played regularly for a Champions League club and one can't even get into the Brighton team at the moment. But again, development of a centre-back, just because someone's already in the development so early at 20, because they're centre-backs, doesn't mean one's going to be better than the other by the time they're 25. And I'm okay if Chelsea decide, okay, Colwill is good enough. I haven't seen enough of him to really make a full judgment of that. Then fair enough. But we really tried really hard to not sell him. And that the combination of trying so hard to not sell him, but then signing Gvardiol, that combination of those two, that's what weirds me out. And yeah, of course, if he has a great loan, his value goes drastically up and we can sell him for way more money. I understand that logic completely. But, if he gets that much better, you can sell him for that much more. Isn't he then good enough for us? Do you know what I mean? And then just save yourself signing someone. That's just where I don't like. Again, if we just agreed to sell Colwill, I'd be like, okay, Gvardiol makes all the sense in the world. But like this, I'm just a little bit confused. It doesn't mean I don't think he's a very good player. It doesn't mean I wouldn't be happy if we did sign him. But the last thing we should probably discuss on this topic, and we aren't 100% sure on it either, but there was some talk, and I think it came from Jacob Steinberg initially, that this could happen in January. But what we're not sure about is whether the deal for the summer could be struck in January, a bit like a Pulisic situation, or whether it could be struck now for January or just in January for January. That's what we're not sure. But January has been mentioned. But Pais, what's your level of information about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. That's one thing I was a bit confused about, was pretty much what you said. I don't know whether it is for January or if it's for sort of this summer, but to be done in January. But I know obviously that Chelsea had been scouting these guys, and in the summer, definitely Chelsea obviously tried it with swap deals, didn't they? I think that was pretty clear with both of these players. So again, definitely long term, or even I think maybe even sort of short term Chelsea targets, but Nkunku definitely more long term, because I think Football London, Adam Newson said earlier that Chelsea had actually been scouting him for the last 2 years. So yeah, predates back to obviously Roman Abramovich. So yeah, interested to see. I don't know how likely. I guess the question is, when does this release clause come into play? Because if it comes into play in January and we activate it, well then he can sign in January. But if it comes into play next summer, then obviously I don't really know why a move would be possible in January, unless we're going to do what we did with Nkunku and play a little bit more than his release clause anyway. So that the whole Gvardiol thing is kind of less clear than Nkunku's situation at the moment.
100%. Tuchel Ban has followed down with another super chat. I appreciate it very much, man. Saying, I prefer Kovacic. Do you? Judging from your first super chat, I didn't expect that, but fair. However, please tell me why Kovacic has a higher ceiling over Gvardiol. What exactly makes you all believe he starts for us? I'm not sure if you're aiming this at me or someone in the comments, but neither myself nor Pai said he does have a higher ceiling. I'm saying just because Gvardiol is better now than Kovacic doesn't mean Gvardiol also has a higher ceiling. I also didn't say that Kovacic has a higher ceiling. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But what's fact is they're both touted as very highly rated young centre-backs. I mean, someone said it earlier. Kovacic won England player of the tournament for England's under 21, which you got to first do that as a centre back, win player of any tournament anywhere. Like, it's not easy as a centre back to achieve that. It can't be that bad. Do you know what I mean? But whether he has a higher or lower ceiling than Gvardiol, I don't know. I purely don't know. I just, when we had Drogba, there was still somewhat better strikers out there. But did we always sign them? No, because we had Drogba. Do you know what I mean? When we had Hazard, was Messi still better than Hazard? Yeah. But did that mean we needed to sign Messi? No, because we had Hazard. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, do you need to sign Gvardiol if you have Kovacic? Maybe one's slightly bit better than the other one. Maybe one's slightly worse than the other one. Who knows? But if you have the one, why sign the other? That's the part I don't understand. Unless they think Kovacic is drastically worse, then fair enough. But then why agree to a loan? Or why not even agree to a loan? We paid extra for Cucurella, which put more pressure on Cucurella, which made the ownership look a bit sillier because the UK media tried to paint it that way. Oh, look, paid 62 million for Cucurella. We paid 52 plus add-ons, and another whole 5 to 10 million of that was just to make them take Levi Kovacic on loan. So you've made a lot of things more difficult by forcing this loan rather than a permanent move for the management itself, for the ownership itself, for Cucurella, and to some extent maybe for Levi Kovacic, who at least reportedly at the time preferred a permanent move. But who knows what's true and what's not, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, Pice, is there anything else to discuss? I mean, there was this what's it called? This data platform, blah, 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 which we're now going to use in the academy. But then I read an actual article about it, and we've been using it for the last 2 years already. Just then it was kind of in the test phase, and now it's kind of, what's the word I should use? Like, finalized that we're going to use it consistently, I guess. But is there anything else you would like to talk about that, or any other bit of news that we should mention? I mean, people are saying, oh, we need a CM. We do, but the things have also said we want Bellingham and we want Rice and we want Alvarez. Like, we're clearly also interested in CMs. We're not just all of a sudden buying other players. But anything of those types of things you still want to talk about, Pice?
I mean, maybe just a random one. Sammy Mockbell said that Chelsea are monitoring Gabriel Martinelli, which I thought was quite interesting. But
Yeah, let's not do that
Yeah,
one, right?
yeah, that was quite interesting. But yeah, that came out I think last night. Contract situation. He's only got 2 years left, but I'd imagine he signs a new deal at Arsenal. But apart from that, it's pretty much everything we've covered, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. One thing maybe to mention, even though of course we'll get into it again in tomorrow's AC Milan preview, Marc Cucurella has been released from hospital after reportedly suffering from tonsillitis, and he's back in training. Now, I'm a little bit confused how you can go from hospital yesterday to training today. Not sure how that works. And also Simon Johnson from The Athletic tweeted, he expects him to play or feature against AC Milan, which again, if you have tonsillitis and were in hospital until yesterday, how are you playing on Wednesday? Not sure. But great news that he's back in training anyways. That is very good. But again, we'll get into more detail of that for the AC Milan preview tomorrow. I think Nkunku or Trossard, Laurenz, who do you think is better?
Different positions.
They play different positions, that first and foremost. And number two, I don't really know. Trossard has had a really good start to this season, but was he that impressive before? Like, decent, but do you know what I mean? What do you think, guys?
Different positions for me. Again, like these player comparisons, like I need to see Nkunku in the Premier League first, and kind of unfair on Trossard when he's only played for Brighton. He's done pretty well, to be fair, for them.
But
yeah,
scored against Liverpool. How many
yeah, I
Chelsea
mean that was amazing. But yeah, definitely difficult to say because clubs and leagues and different things like that, positions, quite a weird comparison.
Absolutely, it is difficult. It absolutely is difficult. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to round this one out. I did have maybe a thing to say about Ben Chilwell. You know what? I will say that now because we haven't streamed for that long yet. I've seen a lot of criticism for Ben Chilwell in the last couple of days. There was like this clip going around, this screen just going around where he didn't play a forward pass to Mason Mount in an attacking area against Palace on the weekend. People are pissing me off a little bit. Like I even saw, and I love Miz, but the other side of the coin, tweeted like, he's patient, but he's worried or concerned. I'm like, bro, the guy's just come back from an ACL injury. Like, only people, and to be fair, I haven't suffered that serious injuries either. I will say no ACL or Achilles torn, but I've had injuries. When you suffer an injury and you have to recover from it, that doesn't just happen from yesterday to tomorrow once you're healthy again, according to a doctor. You're not just yourself straight away. That doesn't happen. And then you're not talking about even, and I'm talking about normal life. Now think of that as being a highest level athlete in the Premier League for Chelsea, being a Champions League winner. Like he literally was involved in our Champions League winning goal, right? You don't just get to that from one week to the other. Like, what are you talking about? Like, let's chill you off a little bit. Like, what you, like, man, it pisses me off. Like, come on. The guy's literally suffered torn his ACL less than a year ago. And the only reason he only played against Palace is because Marc Cucurella had tonsillitis. Like, Chile isn't supposed to be starting too many games at the moment anyway. You know, he's supposed to be given time. So don't be too harsh on him because he doesn't play a certain type of pass that you'd like to see. Stop being idiots, man. Like, think back to how good he was before his injury. If he can get even close to that again, well, if he can get back to that, he's an absolute baller. And we are lucky to have him if he gets back to that. And let's give him some time to actually get fit again. Right, Pice? Like, I find it a bit crazy that people are getting on someone's back that's literally just back from an ACL injury. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I think Miz's tweet as well, he said that his concerns was whether he can ever get back to the pre-injury Chilwell, and I think it's way too early to even
judge that whether he can or not.
Yeah, like it's way too early to even be thinking about that, in my opinion. Don't think he played awful, by the way. I thought he played all right.
No.
It was just, a couple of instances where he could have been more progressive. And I think now that we've signed Cucurella and he has been playing these sort of fizzing passes between the lines, and we've kind of seen how good he is at progressing the ball, I think people have been like getting on Chilwell's back a little bit. And look, maybe Chilwell isn't as good as player as Cucurella. Maybe he's not. But at the end of the day, he's still a good player. And people have different opinions,
Cucurella is maybe better at those whizzing passes, like you just say, and he probably is better at it even than a fit Chilwell. But Cucurella is fully fit, and this season hasn't had anything to do with any of the goals we scored, other than maybe did he hit a corner as an assist for someone? Maybe was it his corner that assisted?
Cut back to was it cutback or something? I can't remember.
regardless, right? But still,
yeah.
Chile, completely not fit, against Everton, wins us the decisive penalty that won us the game. Against West Ham, comes off the bench, assists, scores the equaliser, and then assists, or was it the other way around? Assists the equaliser and scores the winner, or the other way around, like I say, whatever. And he's not even fit. Cucurella hasn't done any of that. Cucurella hasn't won us a penalty. Cucurella hasn't turned up and won us a game basically single-handedly in the last 10 minutes of a game. Like, I'm not trying to criticize Cucurella, but I've actually been pretty happy with Cucurella. But people are like, Chile's shit, Chile's this. Again, Chile's basically the reason for 4 of our points. Against West Ham, you could argue all 3. So 5 of our points that we have, and we don't have that. We only have 13. So like 5 points makes a big difference here. Like, do you know what I mean? Cut back to Havertz against West Ham. Yeah. Cut back to Havertz against West Ham.
And that was Chilwell.
That was Chilwell, yeah, no Cucurella. Although I think RD might have thought you were talking about Cucurella. But regardless, like I said, like Chile is certainly not back to his best and still like done some important things for us this season. So people need to lay the fuck off him, like honestly. And that is
I think with Chilwell, like
so toxic,
even as you said, like there's been instances where I can't remember what game it was, but was it there was a game where a chance came to Cucurella, and instead of whacking it, he tried to play it across the box for Havertz tapping. Someone will remind me, or my memory will click. But I remember saying, I think I came on the stream after, and I was like, if Chilwell was there, got that, was running onto that, that's a goal. Because Chilwell is definitely much better, in my opinion, so far anyway, than Cucurella in sort of in the box or sort of in the attacking area. But for me right now, Cucurella obviously is just a level above everywhere else. So yeah, there's definitely stuff that Chilwell can still offer this side. It's just, yeah, like I do agree with you. People need to lay off his back just a little bit.
Absolutely. And yeah, Cucurella does have 2 assists. One against Spurs. He did assist. He did play the corner from which Koulibaly scored the volley against Spurs. That was a Cucurella corner. And then he assisted the second goal of Sterling's double against Leicester when we won 2-1. He assisted the second of that. So yes, he does have 2 assists, but he didn't win us a penalty at Everton, and he didn't win us the game against West Ham. Again, when I said that, that wasn't trying to discredit Cucurella or anything. That was just like, people say, like iOS, he must leave, he's shit. So you want to play 0-0 against Everton and you want to lose against West Ham. Fantastic. Do you know what I mean? Like, just be a bit like an ACL injury. I want to kick you in the knee, tear you ACL, and say, all right, next week, turn up, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what you're doing. Like, just be these people, human beings that have ACLs like you and I do. It doesn't just get healthy from one day to another. Like, fuck off, and just piss me off. But anyway, I think I've had enough ranting now. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're still here, I appreciate you very much. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers. Smash the like button on your way out. We definitely don't have anywhere near enough likes, considering I haven't told you yet. But leave a like. We have 60 likes, to be fair. But let's try to get to as close to 100 as we can. So on your way out, just click that like button. Just one click of a button. Doesn't cost you any money or anytime. So please do that. It'd be massively appreciated. Like I said in the beginning already, please do check out Pice's website, chelseafc365.com, and his Twitter. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards. And we'll see you next time, but we'll also see you tomorrow for the AC Milan review. So, Bruno, outro, but bye-bye with the finger point.